Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Chiefs of Defence Staff and ECOWAS brainstorm on new ways of tackling terrorism and other security challenges in the sub-region at their 39th ordinary meeting in Abuja. Abducted son of former Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, regains freedom as police arrest 5 suspects over the incident. INEC raises concern over rising number of political parties in Nigeria as reactions to reports by international observers on the 2019 general elections. And UN Special Investigator says Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and other high-profile officials are liable for the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. For more information on our top stories and others, please visit our website, channelstv.com. youtube.com/channelsweb has videos of our shows. Subscribe to Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. Besides giving you access to news updates on the go, the Channels TV and Channels 24 app has an eyewitness feature that you can use to share pictures, videos or news of happenings around you. Just install the app, tap and swipe to reveal the menu, and please follow the instructions. Here in Lagos, Channels Media Group, the operator of Channels Television and its subsidiaries, today hosted a team of top officials of Bloomberg, the global media giant with its headquarters in the United States. The Bloomberg team is in Nigeria to explore and tie up critical news and information broadcast partnership with Channels Television, led by the group chairman, Mr. John Momoh. Leading the Bloomberg team is the chief executive officer of the media group, Mr. Justin Smith, alongside 2 other executive producers from London and Hong Kong. At the end of the meeting and tour, Channels Television's business editor, Bosun Omofaye, sat down to a brief chat with Bloomberg Media Group CEO and asked him about partnerships that can deliver superior news reporting of business and markets in sub-Saharan Africa.
We recognize that, our heritage and our culture and our background is from the West and from America in particular, and even New York City in particular, where our headquarters are, and that, to operate successfully in local markets that are different in various ways is oftentimes a challenge and something which is best overcome. There are challenges which are best overcome with local partners who know the lay of the land, who have existing resources, existing capabilities. But what's really important when we look for partners is to make sure that we find partners that have a very similar set of values and a similar set of understanding of the importance of quality journalism, the importance of independent journalism. In our case, obviously, the importance of data-driven journalism, because a lot of our journalism, which is business and financial focused, moves markets and has a huge impact on the global financial system every single day, whatever we report. And so people have come to rely on Bloomberg for its accuracy and for its focus on data.
And integrity of data and reports, which is #1 for Bloomberg.
Yes.
So I'm sure that is part of what you're looking for in looking for partnerships across, not just around the world, also in Africa, elsewhere in the world. And that's what you're looking for with Channels Television?
That's actually, obviously, Channels Television is has been distinguished, I think, not only in Nigeria, but I would say perhaps across Africa, as being one of the most editorially revered television organizations from an editorial perspective, meaning a true commitment to fair and unbiased reporting and to following the facts and seeking truth. And that's a very difficult thing for anybody to do. But what's interesting and appealing about Channels is that it's sort of built into the DNA of the organization from the founders on down, that this is the mission of the organization is, in fact, to produce great, high-quality, independent journalism. And that's very interesting to us as a potential partner.
Another high point there for Channels Television. The Independent National Electoral Commission is very concerned about the number of registered political parties in Nigeria, as well as the growing demand for more parties. The Commission fears that the situation could make Nigeria go into the 2023 general elections with over 200 political parties. The leadership of INEC believes that there is an urgent need to review the qualifications for registering political parties in Nigeria.
International election observers who monitored the 2019 general elections in Nigeria have been submitting their final reports to relevant authorities and the general public in the last 1 week. Having read some of those reports, the Nigeria Civil Society Situation Room is holding this roundtable with participants from the National Assembly, INEC and international partners to discuss the need for electoral reforms.
The profits, the privileges, and indeed the opportunities that democracy should create for us as a continent is denied us simply because we cannot conduct elections that everybody is proud of. And I would say that we indeed were not proud of the 2019 Nigeria general elections. And so we would have the opportunity to freely express ourselves. We note that in the several reports that have been put out already by the European Union, by NDI, the reaction from the government of Nigeria has indicated, and indeed from INEC, a willingness to look at the reports, take lessons from it, and move forward.
For the international partners, the need for electoral reforms cannot be overemphasized, as Nigeria's democracy needs to be deepened to serve as a model for the African continent.
By its example and preeminence, Nigerian democracy sets the tone for the whole continent. The continued success of Nigeria's democracy is therefore a strategic priority for all of Africa.
We need to work towards increasing the number of youth, women, and persons living with disabilities in elective positions in future elections.
We are going to go into the 2023 elections.
The Independent National Electoral Commission is, however, worried about the growing numbers of requests from political groups seeking to be registered as political parties.
If we register all the political parties, all the political associations that have applied for registration, we are going to go into the 2023 elections with over 200 political parties.
Nigeria has a 4-year electoral cycle. Some participants at this roundtable believe strongly that the next 4 years will provide Nigeria the opportunity to reform its electoral process and conduct better elections in 2023.
Now, to discuss electoral reforms and the process, I'm being joined live from Abuja by the Director, Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, Mr. Oluwole Osaze Uzi. Thanks a lot for joining us on the news at 10 tonight. Now, once again, electoral reforms...
Thank you for having me.
That's fine. Once again, electoral reforms are popular in the last couple of days. I mean, looking at the International Observer's report. But let me start by asking you what your assessment of that report is, talking about the EU Election Observer Mission report. What did you make of it?
Well, the observers were invited, international and domestic observers were invited to observe the process in the hope that they will report faithfully. And part of the conditions for accreditation is that after the exercise, they will submit their reports and their observations to the Commission. And the essence of this is to ensure that whatever they find on the field, we'll also look at the reports of our own monitors. We have those in-house monitors who went in the field, and we'll get those independent monitors, both domestic and foreign, to look at what they said, compare notes, and see whether they match, and if whatever recommendations are made, we'll study them. Individually, members of the Commission have been studying the reports, not just of the EU, but also of the joint NDI and IRI reports, and there are a couple more coming in the next couple of days and weeks. We'll look at all, synthesize the reports, and they're coming at a very important time for us because it's dovetailing into our own internal review of the process. We're meeting all the electoral officers, assistant electoral officers, those who actually conduct the elections are meeting at state level. Next week, they'll come to Abuja and we'll meet at the national level. Okay. So we'll confront them with some of these reports, these observations, and these findings, and find out what their reactions are to those things. And then before the Commission studies the thing deeply, compares notes, and takes a decision and makes its own views known to the public. All
right, you talked about the fact that you've had reports also from local observers. But the reason I'm talking about the latest report we've seen from the international observers is because they mentioned something in there talking about the fact that overall, the EU EOM concluded that elections were marred by transparency shortcomings, election security problems, and low turnout. Is that what your local observers are saying? And is that a fair assessment?
Well, we'll look at the whole gamut, just like the EU report did. They looked at all aspects, or the major aspects of the electoral process. And they looked at the mechanics of it, the nuts and bolts of it, the logistics. They looked at the role of security agencies. They looked at the role of the media. They looked at participation by persons, the different heads. And at the end of the day, they made 30 recommendations. The NDI-IRI report has similar recommendations. And part of the fundamental recommendations that are being made is such that will require the National Assembly and Executive coming together and in legislative intervention. Those ones that INEC can put on board without necessarily changing the laws, we will certainly administer. But they're all aspects of the reports we're looking into, even security matters. We also have a meeting with the security agencies under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. So the whole gamut, we'll meet with the media, we'll meet with CSOs, everything, and they're free to give us the observation on all aspects of the thing, and the reports of the international observers will also be on the table. Okay,
well, looking at electoral reforms, I mean, from what we understand, the Commission is concerned about the number of political parties that we have right now and the number moving forward. What is INEC proposing? I know you've talked about, we should look at the regulations and how many people can, make them, but what's your recommendation?
For now, INEC does not have a position on the total number of political parties. Definitely, the number of political parties contesting elections and sponsoring candidates has a bearing on, for example, the size of the ballot papers, has a bearing on security arrangements, has a bearing on the arrangement of the polling unit, because for now the law says each party sponsoring a candidate is entitled to present an agent. So if, for example, the projection set by the National Commission, we have 200 parties by 2023, there will be a minimum of 200 party agents. They're entitled to it, 200 party agents there. So it's a bit unwieldy, and these are considerations that come. And there are different issues. Many suggestions have been received. We'll synthesize all these suggestions. For example, some people said, look, countries, our neighboring countries, smaller countries like Niger, like Chad, like Republic of Benin, have more political parties than Nigeria does. People don't realize that. But in some instances, not all registered parties are on the ballot or get on the ballot. There might be a threshold for getting onto the ballot. India has regional parties, it has national parties. Is that the model we want to take? INEC does not have a position on it, but we'll listen to all suggestions and we'll make our own position known to the National Assembly. But for now, INEC does not have a particular position about the number of parties that is desirable or whether there should be a limit to the number of parties, but we're concerned that management of the electoral process becomes more complicated, the total number of political parties that you have. Yes.
All right, Director, Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Oluwole Osaze-Uzi, thanks for sharing that with us on the News at 10. And when the News at 10 returns, Debt Management Office rules out plan to float dollar-denominated Sukuk bond this year. That's on business. Stay with us.